Everybody, it's Romania Black, and I'm so excited today because we have not one, but two episodes of Natsume's Book of Friends to watch, and this is our two-parter for Season 7. We still have, luckily, 2 more weeks after this season to at least get through the anime, and then we're going to do a manga recap before we move on to the next series. I'm not ready for that at all, but we're not going to worry about that today, right? Instead, we're going to look at episodes 83 and 84, which are episodes 9 and 10 of Season 7. And last week was the Rule of 8 and was such a unique and intriguing episode. I don't think Natsume's Book of Friends has had an episode like that, which Natsume's Book of Friends Season 7 has been giving us a lot of things that I was not on my bingo card for Natsume's Book of Friends. Taki having a brother, Chobi being a dragon. I was just like, what more can we get? Natsume's doppelganger, like maybe having a ship with Nishimura. It's fun. But we have a two-parter, which to me, anytime we have a two-parter, I'm like, there's going to be exorcists involved. The question is it going to be Matoba? Is it going to be Natori? Or is it going to be both? We're going to find out. But I've got some comments I want to talk about before we even jump into that. So let's get through all of that first. Stripes 1216 for Season 7, Episode 5, which was the Chobi episode, says, there are some hints about Chobi, I think, 1 or 2 chapters that came way before this reveal too, if I remember correctly. Chobi refers to himself as something like a noble being or a high-level yokai, which, as they say, I don't remember if it's in his introduction chapter, which is Taki's intro chapter as well. Craziness. Or in one of the chapters he was in, but I do remember catching that in one of my rereads. So yeah, Midori Kawa has been playing a really long game. So crazy to think about. Yeah, that's wild. I do remember Chobi mentioning themselves being a noble being or this high yokai, but I always thought, especially in the one OVA that was like when Madara took care of the kids and Chobi was there and Chobi was like watching over the kids. I think Chobi said something like that as well. I always thought it was kind of like a little tongue-in-cheek, like, well, I'm very noble and all this. Well, no, it's literal, which is crazy. So I think that's really, really cool. Kaku for Season 7, Episode 6. These next 2 comments are about the Matoba episode, which says, little fun fact. Matoba's return in the anime was pretty hype because his last appearance was in Season 5 in 2016. So his comeback on screen was after 8 years, which I kind of missed him a little. We love to hate him. I didn't realize that he wasn't in Season 6 at all until I read this comment, and I was like, God, no, he wasn't in Season 6 at all. And Season 5, his appearance had been 8 years before this. I know a lot of you are like, Romania, read the manga. And I'm like, I can't. I have to wait for the anime. So I'm fully prepared. If we don't see Matoba for like 5 more years, I'll be like, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it for the hype. That's crazy, though. That's insane. Shimoyama also added that, you see, I'm not great with voice actors. I'm not great. I know like 3 every time I hear them. I know Suda every time I hear him. I know him. I know Kamiya every time I hear Kamiya, who's Natsume's voice, like very distinct. You can tell. And then I usually know Mamoru when he does. So those 3, Miyano Mamoru, Suda, as well as Kamiya. Those 3, I can detect their voices and be like hyped instantly. There are some that I mix up. And I'm going to be the first to admit that these 2 voice actors, I mix up a lot. And I know they don't sound the same, but I do think, my brain thinks they do. And that is Matoba's voice actor. It's not Kuro and Gojo's voice actor. No, it's Sukuna. No, Matoba's voice actor is Suabe. Suabe, you would think. Suabe has such a distinct voice. He's Aomine and Kuroko's basketball. But here's the thing. Nakamura and Suabe, for some reason, at times, their voice actors sound similar. I know they don't, but my brain thinks they do. And so I apologize. I said it was Nakamura voicing Matoba. It is Suabe. Apologies to all. They both have very good voices, though, so can you blame me? And then Sunspots for episode 7, or episode 6 as well with Matoba. These are all from episodes 5 and 6. Says, I agree with all that has come up in the discussion. We see so much of the Exorcist's hypocrisy. In one breath, they're talking about how bad it is that someone attempted to create a yokai by feeding them less powerful ones. And in the next scene, they're essentially doing the same thing. But of course, they consider themselves ultimate arbiters and simultaneously above judgment. And I think the construction of episode 6 lends itself nicely to both interpretations. That Natsume met Matoba, or that he met a yokai in disguise. Dub Matoba is a lot of fun as well, by the way. I told Sunspots, I was like, when I get done with this series, or when I'm caught up, because I'm not done, I will watch this series until it stops producing anime. I will definitely have a lot of time on my hands that if I get withdrawals, I may go back and rewatch the dub. I think that's what's going to probably end up happening. But yeah, the exorcists are so hypocritical, but they are humans, and we humans, we can be hypocrites quite a lot. So, anyway, I'm super excited. I am so ready for this episode set, and the fact that we get to. Of course, it will depend if down below we may stop and talk about episode 10 before episode 11, or episode 9 before episode 10. We may do that. Or we may watch both episodes and then talk about episode 10 and episode 11. Or 9 and 10. Oh my God. So anyway, you will see down below if I will definitely have for the reaction link down below, episodes 9 and 10 will be together. But up here on the YouTube video, you'll see whether or not we actually go into the discussion of episode 9 before episode 10, or if I decide to review them both together. It just depends on the urgency of the episodes to determine whether that's going to happen or not. So yeah, let's get cooking and see what we get. So thank you all so much for watching with me. I really appreciate it. We are going to start episode 9 of Natsume's Book of Friends, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I really love this OP. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Look, I just need, by the end of this season, all I'm asking, Midorikawa, is by the end of this season, you give us something about Natsume's grandpa. Something I can latch onto for the next however long it takes to make season 8. That's all I need. I'm not asking for much. And here's the thing. The fact they don't show us whose hand it is, it's like, yes, it could be Natsume's because he's wearing the same shirt in the OP. But it could also be the grandpa. Ugh! Aww. Aww. Damn Chobi in the back. Or no, that's Mizuru. Oh, not the opening lyrics or sound. Oh. Loquats. Oh my God, it's Matoba. Oh. That which blocks the ceremony. Oh, it's Natori. Ah! Oh my God. I need it. I need the face. Yes! Yes! He's gotten more handsome. Oh no. Just pull him away. Put him in a bucket hat and we'll be fine. Don't you have a car? Fair. Oh, lots of exorcists, perhaps? Oh, we're back to Hiroshima. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Natori does look more handsome. He does look more handsome. Yes. You're a cheap date. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh. That's fair. But oh my God. Uh-huh. Wow. Okay. Ha! I'm with Madara. He has gotten insanely handsome. What has happened? Ah! He's like, look at them. Wow, the loquats. Oh, he likes sweet. Okay. Madara's like, I'll taste test for y'all. You're not gonna let him in to go get the books? Oh, like the ED. They're expensive. He's like, I'm gonna make a fortune. No! His little... Natsume, be careful. Be careful, Sweet Bean. Yeah. Hmm. Uh-huh. Oh, that's a yokai for sure. That did that. Oh, shit. Oh, shit! Oh! Pfft. Attempt of bridal rescue fail! Ah! Oh. There was a creepy yokai-like hand that snipped it. Did you find what you were looking for? Wow, yeah. The moment Madara's eyes turn that way, it's like, you know. There's clearly a yokai there. Oh, bitch. Nope. I would search. I would maybe try to detect. Oh. But they had a key. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh. Oh, bitch! Ah! 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 You stand right in front of Natsume! Miharu. What is the Miharu family? Ah. Did it? Mmm. Oh. I love Madara with the one eye open. It almost feels like he's insulting Matoba. Right. Huh. Yeah. Oh. Hmm. Mm. Is just troublesome. Matoba's little. Ooh. Are they his? We have to redo the spell. Okay. Thanks. Ah, they're mad at Natori. Well, sorry, didn't know. Oh. Don't speak on my behalf. Matoba's mad! I love this. 40 years ago. Oh, oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh. It's their 8th visit. That's so scary. The most temperamental. Well, that looks like their hands. That looks like their hands that cut the flag. Hmm. You would always have that on the table. What a pain, and now it's the other eye. Why were you trespassing? Mm. Oh, the tension. Oh, the tension. Oh, the tension. Uh-huh. The cat and I shall protect him. Awesome. No. Oh, he didn't bring it. Okay. Yeah, no shit. Okay, well, it's good that he actually didn't bring it. Listen, girly. Right? Wow. Hmm. I'm in love with this episode set already. Ugh. Oh, Madara's eyes. He's just so slimy. Yes. We shouldn't have to eliminate it. Don't take the easy way out. Mm. Give me more work! Mm. Mm. Right. So something's cutting it. Yeah. Well, it looked human. It was just a hand. Ooh. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Mmm. Aw. 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 And Matoba's over here like, I'm not invited for the loquats. He's like, would be nice if y'all invited me to eat them with you. I do feel kind of bad for Matoba because he's not invited to hang out and have fun. Mmm. Hmm. Right. Mmm. Hmm. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. That gentle man. That gentle man always wavering. I love it. Yeah, no, exactly. Talk about that. Mmm. Ooh. 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 Was that an indirect kiss? Do we count that as an indirect kiss? Can we? Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Mm-mm-mm. Oh! Oh! Somebody's trying to give them 7 minutes of heaven, but there's a whole bunch of windows open. Just, you had a window cracked. Get out the window. Oh. Oh. Did you not just sense that? Nope! Oh, bitch. Go out the window that's open? Yeah. Oh. Oh, well, shit. They were my idea. It's got a barrier. Yep, there we go. Oh! Your eye could have gone. Oh. Oh. Oh, wow. Hmm. Matoba. Oh. Mmm. Huh. Hmm. 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 Ah. Interesting. Oh. Oh no. Oh. No, I doubt it. Oh, Nanase. There we go. Don't take its voice. Oh! Oh. Oh, oh no! Right. Oh. Oh, oh no! Oh! Okay, we're gonna have to stop for a second and talk about this. So we're gonna talk about episode 9 and then come back and watch episode 10. But I will put the reactions together. Don't you worry. Oh, we need to talk about this episode first, though. Oh my god, so we have to talk about episode 9 before we dive into episode 10, which is usually Natsume's Book of Friends has like one episode and then the next episode and there's like a cliffhanger and you're like, no, this had a cliffhanger, but I was like, no, we need to stop because otherwise I don't know if I'll get everything out that I want to say. So we're going to talk about episode 9 first. Like I said, the reaction will be cobbled together down below before we dive into episode 10, but the best of both worlds. It is rare. Has it ever happened? I think it's happened like maybe once where we've had Natori, Matoba, and Natsume all three together. It's happened like maybe once, maybe twice in a series. But I feel like when it does happen, you're like... And I also feel like Natori and Matoba and Natsume have all evolved as characters so much, where the first time they all three were together, it was so tumultuous and tense. There's still tension there. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that. But I feel like now all three characters, thanks to not only Natsume's influence, but also how Natsume has evolved as a character, are all very different from what they were when they last met, which is exciting. So we need to talk about them as a whole and what we get here. I like that Toko was just like, yeah, Shigeru and I love loquats. That would be great. And Natsume does too. So you should go with Natori and your friend to go get some. And he's like, what? That which blocks the ceremony. So I'm curious about the yokai that has blocked the ceremony. We're going to put them here. This random yokai that looks the most Midorikawa yokai of all wants to block the ceremony because they want the Mahiru clan to just not exist anymore. And I feel like Natsume was about to tell the yokai, and they might in episode 10 to be like, hey, the Mahiru clan don't exist anymore. We're just doing the ceremony so that we can, let the deities come in, do their thing, and then they'll eventually leave because this is their 8th visit. They only have one more after this. Now, granted, 2 of the yokai come and visit for like 30 or 40 years at a time, which is a big chunk. So, Matoba will be very old when they come back the next time. The third one comes back periodically, like before every decade. But maybe the yokai, maybe their whole thing isn't just that they have a qualm with the humans. Maybe it's the yokai that visit that it has a qualm with. And that's why it's trying to stop the ceremony, because they're like, I don't want the yokai to come back. They terrorize this place. I don't want it to come. No. So we need to find that out. We need to find out what's going on, which I think we will the next episode, to see what the deal is and why it's happening that way. I love Natori showing up every time, sparkling, and Natsume and Madara are just like, And then Madara's like, he keeps getting more handsome. He does. This series loves Natori, loves to make him more and more handsome. And Natsume's like, what do I do with this? Do I ship Natsume and Natori after all this time? I mean, Natsume and Tanama are like top tier ship. But if I had older Natsume and Natori, I would ship them. But I do like Natori and Matoba as a ship, I think. Although, here's the thing. Here's my problem. I like the aesthetic of Matoba and Natori as a ship. I do not like them as a ship for reasons that we will talk about later on. Aesthetically, in fan art, oh yeah, there was like a Natori and Matoba day earlier on last month. And I was like, yes, Matoba and Natori aesthetically on paper look amazing, but we're going to talk about in this episode why there's some problems with them, but also maybe ways they could be shipped. We'll go into that. But yeah, I do like Natori and Natsume. There's a part of me that thinks they're also related, and I'm like, I don't know, do I want to ship them? But we'll see. There's also a corgi in this scene, which is adorable. But yeah, he's like, I like taking the train. Can relate. Cars are fine. Trains are great. You don't have to do the driving. But they end up in this area that is surrounded by a bunch of old mansions, and one of which is the Yorishima home. That is such a damn tease that he went into the Yorishima home and left Natsume out. That is such a damn tease. Matoba seems to know who Yorishima is, surprising no one. But the Yorishima house is near the Mahirus, and I'm assuming they're a bunch of exorcists as well. And Yorishima doesn't want to go because he's like, I got this yokai in my arm. The last thing I want to do is go and attract more yokai to myself because I don't like yokai, so let's not do that. Do I think that the Yorishima house possibly has information about Natsume's grandpa in it? Yes, and I think it's a damn tease that they're not giving us it yet. They better by the end of it. But yeah, I also feel like Natori asking Yorishima, visiting him more often. He's like, he asked me to get some books. So maybe Yorishima is trying to figure out if his relative or if something connected to the yokai in his arm is tied to Natsume's grandpa, because he seemed to like Natsume. So maybe that's what's going on. We'll have to see. But this series is a damn tease. He's like, I can get as much loquats as I wanted. I love Madara saying that Natori is a cheap date. He really kind of is, you know. That's not a bad thing, but he's like, you're a cheap date. Get some loquats and get the stuff. He's like, this place is deeply related to exorcists. So yeah, the Yorishima, all this, I have a feeling that Natsume's grandfather was an exorcist. I have a feeling that his grandfather was an exorcist. There is a good chance he was in that mansion where Benito's grandfather lived. I feel like that's why the familiar knew Natsume and thought he was familiar. I feel like the yokai in Yorishima's arm could have been a familiar of Natsume's grandpa. We don't know. Or is at least could be tied to Book of Friends. I don't know. But you know what? We're going to find out eventually. We just have to be patient with Midori Kawa, who plays the long game. I do like that Natori, Natori can't help it. He was just, I wanted to call and ask how you were doing. Natori was just being nice and was trying to call and see how Natsume was and got roped into taking him on this journey that he really didn't want him to involve him in. And I appreciate that. I love Natori. He cares about Natsume a lot as a friend. When they're older, maybe something more. Who knows? We'll see. But I do appreciate their friendship, at least at this point in the series. And Natsume's like, well, I'm happy that you're just willing to take me to these places. And Madara's like, I'm happy to just get some loquats. Also, Madara was like, these are expensive. I am going to be monopolizing and capitalizing on all of this as soon as possible. He's like, I'm getting my knapsack ready to gather all of them together. Madara was amazing in this episode. I love when he looks at Matoba with one eye. Like, it's almost like he's mocking him for having the eye, but he's like, I got my eye on you. I don't trust everything that you say, which is very true. Here's my thing. Natori, as Natsume describes, is a gentle, not a gentleman, but a gentle man that is wavering. That is such a good way of describing Natori. He's constantly wavering over what he should do, what is the right thing to do, how do I do this and respect others, how do I help Natsume, how do I do this? Like Natori is just a kind, gentle man that is wavering and wants to remove the yokai that's attached to him. Now, whether or not that's even possible or why the gecko is there, we don't know. But then you have Matoba, Matoba is such an interesting character. All right. He is so interesting. And I love him and hate him at the same time. And he's so frustrating in a way because he genuinely shows that he cares about his family. Now, does he care about people outside of his family? That's questionable. But he cares about his family. And he's like, my family was in danger, and I hate that the generation before me did nothing to protect them. And that's a very valid, fair concern. The thing also about Matoba that's annoying is that he is slimy. He is slimy. He enjoys using people, and he hates yokai. And he sees no value in yokai for being their own independent self. He just sees them as a nuisance, as something to use, as something to benefit himself and his family, and he has nothing else to do with them. Natori is at least a lot more open-minded than he was. And Matoba, he made this comparison in the episode where he's like, Natori, you're pretty powerful. You could have all sorts of familiars work for you. Why are you settling for these three? And it's kind of like when you're playing somebody who builds decks and you have the person that has their Pokemon deck and they're just choosing Pokemon that are the most efficient in combat and duels. And then you have people that are like, but this is a really cute team. I like my Appleton because he's adorable, not for what he does. And so Natori is all about building these relationships. And whether he realizes it or not, he's developed relationships with these yokai, and he's open-minded, even though he very much wants to stay in the exorcist world because I believe he finds value in belonging there, right? The whole acting thing's a facade. That's what pays the bills. But this is where he finds true community and understanding of himself, even though they are a The exorcists are a problematic group anyway, but he finds some camaraderie there, right? But at the same time, Natori kind of realizes, he's like, I'm in too deep. I can't get out now, nor do I want to, but I don't want Natsume to get involved in this world because he believes Natsume is a better person than what Natori is, which depends, but he's not wrong. So yeah, so then you have Matoba, who sees no value in the yokai, but also Matoba is committed. He is committed to his clan, to his role, and his family, which we're going to talk about when we get back to Natori. We're going to talk about that when we get there. But yeah, so the flag was cut. I love that Natori tried to rescue Natsume. Every time Natori tries to rescue Natsume, like a damsel in distress, like a knight in shining armor, he screws it up. Because Natori is just bound and determined and destined to screw it up. So they go over to the Mahuru house where it's abandoned. And Madara is instantly like, I got a bad feeling about this, which could apply to the Matoba clan, could apply to the traps that were set, could apply to the yokai trying to come in, could apply to the yokai already in. Like, it's just a mess. And then I love as soon as Matoba shows up, Natori is like cementing himself, sandwiching himself in between Matoba and Natori, like, nope, stay away, slimy man. Also, the sexual tension between Natori and Matoba, chef's kiss. Love it. I also think that Madara accepts Natori a lot more now because he realizes Madara hates Matoba. I think if Madara had the option of eating Matoba and knew he could get away with it, he would. He knows Natsume would hate him for it and not forgive him, so he doesn't. But I think if Madara was like, if you step out of line, Matoba, if you get to where I can get rid of you and you're hurting Natsume, I won't hesitate. And I think because Natori is trying to protect Natsume from harm, Matoba's like, I'm with you. You're fine. You'll do. You'll do in the pinch. So yeah. He's like, well, this is the Miharu family mansion. Not Maharu, Miharu. Their bloodline ended a long time ago. So, their bloodline ended a long time ago. Is there a possibility the Miharus are related to Natsume? Well, maybe, but we don't know. We don't know yet. We'll see. He's like, once every few decades, one of the three deities that protects the house will visit. Can I say I love the world building of Natsume's Book of Friends and this episode? Like, everything the yokai does, this series gives way to such creativity because there's so much the yokai that you can do with them. Like in this household, there are these pillars and these yokai trade off coming in to protect the house, even though there's nobody living here anymore. And they do it in a determined amount of time based on each yokai. Also, Nanase's been there the whole time. I love the fact that she was quiet and did her role and let Matoba speak for the family, but she was there the entire time. It's great. And so Madara says it's like a Zashiki Warashi that works in shifts. And he's like, correct. He's like, the Matoba would prefer to ignore it, but we would like to avoid any calamities befalling the rest of the clan. So again, Matoba doesn't care about the yokai. He doesn't care about the yokai themselves. He doesn't care about any connections they would have with this house. It's kind of like Beniko and her grandfather. Her grandfather had all these connections to the yokai. That's why they kept coming back. The exorcists don't care about that, which is, Natsume doesn't like that. Natsume is like, but these things are happening because it reminds me of like a criminal justice system. Like here in the US, I would say Natsume, the reason I love him so much as a protagonist is he kind of falls in line with what I like, which is like the idea of restorative justice, where let's try to understand why these people did these things and try to maybe work to communicate with people so that these things don't happen in the future. It's more preventative, right? It's more preventative action. And Natsume is kind of more of that person. Natsume as a mediator between yokai and humanity is like, but if we talk to the yokai and kind of understand where they're coming from, maybe we can prevent all of this bad stuff from happening before it starts because we'll kind of know what's going on. Matoba's mentality is like standard criminal justice in the US where it's like, well, they've committed a crime. We have to punish them. We're not going to try to understand why they did it. It doesn't matter. They just need to be punished so we can protect people. That's literally Matoba's mindset. He tells Natsume, he's like, yeah, we're performing this ceremony, but if they give us any trouble and put us in danger, I guess we'll just have to take them out. And Natsume's like, I think that should be a last resort. So, Matoba is consistent as a character in terms of, yeah, I need to protect my family, but I am not going to entertain the idea of trying to understand why these yokai would attack us. If they attack us, we'll just take them out. And I'm like, that's problematic, but that's not how he's basically like, we don't really care about the Miharu family. We don't care about the yokai and why they keep coming back. We just want to finish the ritual so they'll leave and then nothing happens to us. The promise was the three of them would visit 9 times. I think of Ferris Bueller, 9 times. He's like, or maybe despite their strength, they're the kind that doesn't understand a family can come to an end. That's the thing. There are parts of Matoba's character that I feel like, oh, this man cares and he's not a bad guy. But then he says things like that where it's like, he really just calls the yokai dumb and says that he doesn't think they can understand that a family's come to an end. And I'm like, I think the yokai have realized the family's gone, but I think they keep coming back because of whatever promise they made with the family. And Matoba assumes a lot of information without actually knowing what he's talking about. So, and then Natori says making a promise with something inhuman like that is just that troublesome is what Natsume thinks he wanted to say. And it's not, I love that the gecko on his face is present during this, but Natsume's also like, he thinks, or perhaps for Matoba's sake as well. Now, Natsume says he didn't bring the Book of Friends, which thank goodness. I'm glad he didn't, unless he's lying, because Matoba does not need to know about that. Because again, Matoba does not have a kind heart. He puts on a front. He may care, but I would not describe him as kind-hearted. Yeah. Or maybe it's for Matoba's sake as well. I feel like Natori does not see any benefit in making promises with yokai because he finds it all troublesome and he's like, oh, that could lead to a lot of problems, which he's not wrong. But I think a lot of the exorcists forget that yokai are as varied as humans. Some of them will keep their promises. Some of them won't. Some of them are good-hearted individuals. Some have a lot of hatred in them. They're just as varied as humanity. So it's fun to see how these dynamics develop. And Natori doesn't want to get him involved, but Natsume's like, look, I got myself involved in this. I'll finish it. And Matoba's fine with that because Matoba knows that Natsume is strong and he's like, oh, you'll help too, Natsume-kun? Oh, good. And Natori's like, if anything happens to him. Like, it just, these two, one is very willing to use Natsume and one is very willing to protect him. So the last ceremony was 40 years ago. He's like, I'm told they were concerned what would happen without the Miharu family. But Shirotsume no Kimi, what a name, the most gentle one came and the ceremony was successful. She's really pretty. She also looks similar to the yokai that is trying to keep the others at bay, but they said that she left. She finished her 40-year stay and left yesterday. Maybe this yokai that stuck around is sad because she left and is like, I hate that this ceremony is continuing. I want it to just end so these yokai aren't bound to come here over and over again. He's like, the next question is which will visit us come for the 8th visit. So whoever comes will have to come again. So the 40-year yokai is going to have to come back at some point within like another 40 years. And then Bobozukin stays for 30 years. He looks like a Soul Eater character. And it could be him, as we're fine as long as there's no mistakes. But I think the one that's coming is the one that is Akane, stays for 8 years and is the most temperamental and looks like a tree / Jujutsu Kaisen character. And I feel like they're the one that's going to show up. Yeah, he's like, we may have a problem. He's like, well, it won't be an easier exorcism, but we could perform one. I'm like, quit relying on violence as your only answer, Matoba. So Matoba's like, why are you here? And Natsume and them talk about the flag. And he's like, whoa, you're visiting the Orishima household. I'm told the two of you have been spending a lot of time together. I feel like Matoba is a little jealous. I feel like Matoba is a little bit jealous that Natori can just come and go as he pleases and go visit Yorishima and do whatever he wants to. I feel he's a little jealous because Matoba doesn't get that luxury. Matoba is the clan leader and has to do all these things for the clan, and he doesn't have time to really go out and do things, which is why, as slimy and inappropriate as he can be at times, I did genuinely feel bad that they were sitting there talking about the loquats and having, like, you know, just hanging out and having a good time, and Matoba's just standing over here like, so I guess I'm not invited. Like, you know, he's like, gee, it was such a passive aggressive comment. He was like, gee, loquats sure do sound fun. He's like, which I feel bad. I feel bad he isn't given that luxury, but also Natsume does ask him, he's like, you know, would you ever consider not being an exorcist anymore? And then, you know, having that opportunity of living a civilian life. And Matoba's like, no, never. And I think that, I don't know if Matoba quit being the clan leader, would the yokai quit coming after his eye? Or would it continue to do so? Does he not want to consider that possibility because he doesn't want to go down that road and see what that life would be like? But also Matoba, I feel like Matoba and Natori have kind of entrenched themselves into this culture and into this society. And, you know, Natsume has always been alone until this series started. He was just passed off from person to person. And Matoba had once tried to prey on Natsume for that information, which I did not like at all. He's kind of let go of that, I think, because he realizes that that's not going to work anymore. So he kind of like backed off. But Matoba was kind of originally preying on Natsume for his isolation, being like, well, if you come here with this clan, you'll get a sense of belonging, just like I've gotten and how Natori has gotten. And then luckily Natsume was able to resist from that. But now Natsume has a stable home life, and he's like, that doesn't affect me at all. So it's not a strategy that Matoba can use anymore. Right? And I like the tension between him and Natori, where he's like, what were you doing? He's like, nothing to concern yourself with. Natori does not want Matoba to know that he's helping Natsume find out about his grandfather or anything to do with Reiko, which is probably good. Probably good. So Matoba likes bossing people around. That's part of his thing. But Natsume's like, we got this. I love the banter with Hiragi and Matoba, with Madara. Madara's like, call me sensei. And he's like, watch yourself, little girly. You want to fight, girly? Love that. And Natori's like, look, if you had brought in that one item, I would have made you leave. I would have waited till Matoba left, complete eyesight, before he said anything, because he was right there. I'm sure he heard. I'm sure he heard about the one item, and now he's going to be curious as to what the one item is. I'm sure he heard. I'm like, Natori, you walking disaster of a character. You couldn't wait till he was out of eyesight? Yeah. But anyway. So Natsume's like, at some point, the burden that was once mine alone, I wish there was something I could do too. I think Natsume, you know, Natsume, Natori, and Matoba have come a long way since we first met them. Natsume in season 3 would have been freaking out at this point. Natori would have been a lot more sinister, I think, than he is. And Matoba would have just been the worst. So we've come a long way to them working together. He's like, if we have to eliminate the yokai, your help would be appreciated. I like that basically Matoba's like, our clan has many members, but only few of them are useful. He's like, our clan's kind of rough. And Natsume, I like Natsume stands his ground, and he's like, no, he's like, I'll help you to get the ceremony up and going, because it needs to happen to protect all the humans involved. He's like, but I'm not going to help you eliminate this yokai. He's like, no, I don't really want to do that. And Matoba doesn't really have a choice. He kind of has to, it's interesting, he kind of just has to go along with what Natsume says, which is interesting. And so the flag is for the welcome ceremony, so who is trying to cut it? And I like that Matoba says, was it a human hand or a yokai hand? Like, Natsume could tell the difference. And to be fair, I think Natsume could if he saw more of the yokai, but he just saw the hand and it was pale. So we find out it was the yokai. Well, it could be the yokai, but also there's the traps with the masks. There's the 3 masks. There's the fox, there's the 1 mask, and then there's the old man, which seem like the 3 spirits that are visiting the house. So what's the connection there? I would like to think that the mask of the middle one is the gentle spirit, but could be wrong. I don't know. And that the old man mask would be the one for the temperamental yokai that only stays 8 years because they're old, they can't stay too long. And the kitsune would be the other one that stays for 30 years. But then they're not in that order. It goes like the middle one is the one that came first. So I don't know. I don't know. And Hiragi, I like the world building that Hiragi has to ask permission to go throughout the mansion from Natsume because she's worried about the spells. And then she's like, Natori was very happy that you accepted his invitation. We involved you in something, and I hope that it will not deter you from hanging out with Natori. She's like, look, my master's making friends. Please don't stop being his friend just because you got involved in this. And Natsume's like, oh, it's fine. We'll hang out together. Meanwhile, Matoba's over there, and he's just like, oh, you guys were over at Yoroshima's house, huh? He's like, you guys were over at that household, those loquats do look good. How do you say that you're jealous that you weren't invited to have fun without saying you were jealous and you weren't invited to have fun? Matoba's just like, oh, you couldn't just invite me to come hang out with you, huh? It's good. It's good. And then he's like, you need to put this mask on. It would be considered rude for a human to breathe on it. So he's like, it'll be the size of a human, but it has no face. And once it enters, that's when we know it'll end. And Madara's like, what a nasty deity to not reveal itself until it comes in. Mm-hmm. Whoever cut down the flag is trying to interrupt the ceremony. And then Matoba says, well, yeah, I'm sure there's someone out there who wants it to fail and for a disaster to strike us, so we'll be weakened. I feel like Matoba also takes a lot of pride in his family and what they do. He takes a lot of pride. And so the fact that there's people that are trying to hurt him, I think he's like Michael Jordan in that documentary. He's like, and I took that personally. He's really, mad about that. And he's not wrong. I think that it's interesting that Matoba shows a lot of self-awareness, that there's a lot of people that don't like them. And he kind of just is like, well, I'll change their minds, is kind of his mentality. And Natsume's like, I'm kind of glad that I heard him say he didn't want to quit being an exorcist. Yeah, it's one of those things where Matoba, he's so entrenched in it, him leaving that culture would probably not suit him. But what about Natori? That gentle man who always seems to be wavering. Here's my thing. I talked about this at the beginning of the discussion here. I see the Natori and Matoba ship, especially the aesthetics of it. I mean, it's classic. It's like Natsume and Tanama, Matoba and Natori. However, there is a part of me that I'm like, I think it would only work for me to ship it if Natori was able to influence Matoba. Because Matoba has a lot of toxicity around the exorcist world that he's kind of taken on himself. And I don't know if Matoba realizes how much that toxicity has affected him, like subconsciously. And Natsume has helped him get out of that toxicity. Like Natsume has helped him to stay away from that, which is why I kind of like them as an older ship down the road. But I feel like if Natori and Matoba were a ship, I would need Natori to keep being influenced by Natsume, off with his husband Tanama, off to the side to keep influencing Matoba. Like these two are good foils for each other, but it would only work if Matoba was receptive of the change Natori could bring for him. If he's not receptive, then it would be problematic. So I don't know. The writer does such a good job of making these characters so fleshed out. It's great. He's like, for some reason, nobody's lived here for decades. I love when they talk about the place feeling lonely despite there being a lot of people there. I feel like it's when you go to, like when you've had a family member die and you go to their house and there's a bunch of you there, but it just feels empty. I had that happen like when my great-grandmother died. She had a house and we were cleaning it out and there was a bunch of us there doing things, but the soul of the house was just gone. Like it didn't feel like a home anymore. And that's kind of how this mansion feeling kind of, it seems in that moment. He's like, Natori says, would you not treat Natsume like he works for you? And Matoba's like, hey, Natsume wants to work with me. It's his choice, not yours. Don't tell a boy what he can and can't do. And then they're both like, and when he put the bag over Natori's head, I was like, is that an indirect kiss? Because he could have just popped out the fresh one and gave it to Natori, but he took the one that he'd been breathing on and put it on Natori's head. Is that an indirect kiss? I'm treating it as an indirect kiss. Yes. I do like Natori and Matoba as a ship though, because Natori can be kind of like aloof and naive and kind of goofy sometimes. And Matoba is never goofy. He's very much like, yes, I have a plan. I'm in control. I'm on top. And I'm like, I could see that working in a ship. So yeah, I'm like, oh, I need to go read Matoba and Natori fanfiction after we're done with this. I've been holding back because I was like, are we going to see them together in the anime? And here we are. And they're also wearing like the matching clothes, so you know. So they get into the room. The moment you heard that pinwheel and that window open, I was like, and that pristine clean room, it was like The Shining. I'm like, no, I want to see if we could see after the pinwheel who's behind them. Okay, so yeah, so that yokai pushed him in. Okay. And they're slowly running out of oxygen. 7 minutes in heaven with Matoba and Natori. And so he's like, what does he say here? Madara is like, do you feel anything? Oh, he says, do you feel anything, Sensei? And he's like, you're being silly, Natsume. Don't expect me to be of use in an exorcist mansion. Well, that's not good, Madara, for you not to be of use because it's an exorcist mansion. That's conveniently not good for us. And then, damn, I feel like the yokai, when it said play outside child and had the ball, I feel like the yokai recognized, especially after Natsume said they weren't an exorcist, the yokai was like, hey, I'm not targeting you. You're not my concern. Leave now. Go outside and play so you don't get in trouble with what I'm about to do. I feel like the yokai was trying to give Natsume an out. But of course, Natsume's like, we can't do that. Also, can we talk about the sword in the wall and the fact that Matoba almost lost his good eye? And that I'm like, Matoba, you are smart. Why would you put your good eye up next to a cracked mass peephole? And then this giant blade comes out of it. Like a damn saw trap. Why would you do that? I'm like, if I were Natori, I would write that down and be like, hey, I just saved your life, so you owe me one. Maybe he'll do that. Someone is willing to set up such a dangerous trap to stop the ceremony. And he's like, whoever locked us in here triggered a spell trap for intruders. That's why the windows won't break. And Natori's like, well, my familiars probably can't get in here. And Matoba's whole MO is just, he's like, well, if it's a spell, we can break it. It just depends on how to break it. He's like, but if it's an egg, we can crack it. We can get out of here. And then he has the discussion about the familiars with Natori. He's like, you're capable of contracting with more powerful yokai, you know. He's like, if you choose them at random, you'll never rise to the top. And Natori's like, one, my goal is not to rise to the top, sir. 2, I did not choose them at random. They have special significance to me. And 3, I believe in quality over quantity. So, I just love how Matoba and Natori have such different viewpoints. And they have such different, like, outlooks on everything. But they look so aesthetically good together. It's great. And he's like, even if it takes time, I have this mission and I'm going to keep doing it. And Matoba's like, I don't understand what you're trying to say. He's like, I'm told that the Miharus were once a noble house with their own beliefs, but their naive actions caused them to decline. And I feel like in that moment, Matoba is relating the Miharu house to Natori, being like, you're kind of like them. You have all these noble intentions, but you're naive about how the world works and it's going to lead you to struggle. And I'm like, well, you know, that's kind of hypocritical for you to say, Matoba, because you admitted yourself that your clan is not that great and they struggle. So working for you and doing what you say doesn't necessarily end up meaning they're going to be well off. And now they set up these horrible traps. And I do get my eye twitches a little bit when he calls them like 3 monsters. I'm like, they're yokai. They're like practically deities. Let's be real. He's like, but they couldn't master them. And I'm like, again, that kind of proves Natori's point. When Matoba's like, well, you could contract more powerful yokai. And I'm like, Matoba, I don't think realizes how hypocritical he is in this moment. Because on the one hand, he's comparing Natori to the Miharu family and how naive they were and how because they didn't know what to do correctly, it led to their decline. But then he talks about how they welcomed these 3 yokai because they were powerful and then couldn't master them. And I'm like, you just were telling Natori to contract powerful yokai. What if he can't control them? So you're kind of like, you're contradicting yourself. And it's, you know, not uncommon for the exorcist to do. He's like, even though they joined the infamous Matoba clan, he's like, I don't think much of that generation of Matobas who failed to protect their own families. Yeah, at least Matoba proves himself to like have some good quality to him where he's like, I would have at least protected the families and not let the yokai take over. So I have disdain for that previous generation. Then Natori realizes that they're running out of oxygen, and Matoba's like, damn it, we're gonna have to make out to sustain ourselves. And then Nanase notices that the one yokai is at the door, and Nanase's like, well, fine. We're going to have to do the words of welcome ourselves without them. Meanwhile, Natsume gets drawn into the corridor where, I don't know, if I saw all these, like, talismans and stuff on the inside of this wall, I'd be a little freaked out. And then there's trap doors, I'd be a little bit freaked out. I'd be more cautious than just running in head first blindly. But that's not what he does. At least the yokai seems to be... She seems to be like, because she has the eyelashes, Natsume says she in the episode. She seems to be relatively innocent. She's just like, yes, I want the Miharu to disappear. Maybe if they've fallen in together into the trap door, that Natsume can explain to this yokai what's actually going on, and that, you know, he can be like, well, I know this seems crazy, but we actually mean well. It's going to be okay. We'll see. But, Oh, this is so good so far. I cannot wait. I'm going to get back to y'all now. We're going to go ahead and start episode 10 and go from there. And then we'll talk about it after that. Okay, so we're going to get back to this and do episode 10 of season 7. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's go. I'm going to let the intro play so that the timer doesn't get too crazy, but I'm like, how are they getting Matoba and Natori out? How are we doing that? And how are we dealing with, which yokai are we dealing with? And what about this yokai? And what does it equate to? And the crazy part about all this is we still have 2 episodes left. Once this season is done, or once this set is done, we have 2 more episodes. So excited. Yeah, the spinning umbrella to the bicycle. Okay, look. Studio that makes this show. I need to talk to you directly right now. Let's not wait half a decade before season 8. You're only doing 11 or 12 episodes. You can get all this done in a couple years. You can do it. I have faith in you. Yay. Okay. Are there loquats in that bag, Toko? Yeah, okay. Dive right back into this. Her voice is so distorted. I love it. Oh! The house where a promise remains. Ooh, I love that they title cards. Oh. This seems bad. Why is he not affected as much? Oh. Oh. You would normally think putting more smoke into a room with thinning air would be a problem, but... Oh. Ooh. I don't like that philosophy at all. I don't think he does pretend that. Oh, ask him again. And he didn't answer him that time. Oh. Oh. Interesting, yeah. Oh. Oh. Oh, bitch. Oh, bitch. Oh. We're going to talk about that. I wonder if they... Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Huh? Oh. Yes! Natsume's great at that. He's like, it's kind of a thing. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. No. Oh. Oh. Did he trap her? Oh, wow. Oh. Oh, look at how cute she is. Stop. Oh. 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 We're going to talk about this. Hmm. Oh, Natori's looking for Natsume. Ooh, we're going to talk about this. Oh. 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 Mm. They call that stalking! Oh my god, Minora's like, we got a class 5, we got a stage 5 clinger. Mmm. Oh. 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 Okay. But they're already gone. They're already destroyed, technically. Oh. Oh. Oh, damn. Damn it. Yeah. Ooh. Oh my god. Hmm. No, damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Don't give us cat butts. Oh, bitch. Oh. Hmm. Oh. Ooh. Matoba with his, like, pain kink. Oh. Well, kind of. Oh. 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 Hmm. Oh. Oh, that's May. Oh, okay, it's one for 30 years. Oh. There we go. There we go. That's why. That's why his kindness. Well. Oh. Oh. Mmm. I want to see his face all the way. Mmm. Mmm. Huh. Oh, shut up! Oh. 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 Oh my gosh. Oh. Mm. Oh. Madara's eyes. Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Like 30 years. Uh-huh. Don't tell him about the Book of Friends. Yeah. ultimate tuxedo mask meme. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Yes, troublesome. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Oh. Yes, very. Mm-hmm. Oh. Oh. But we didn't get to see what he looked like. Of course he did. He has terrible luck. He has terrible luck. Oh. Hmm. No, you didn't. Bullshit. Bullshit. Well done! Mm. Mm. Right. Yes. Are rare. I'm horribly overworked. Yeah. Yep. You always say that. And he told him to cheer up just like he told Matoba. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! How are the Natori, Matoba, Natsume episodes the best in the series? How are they the best in the series? How are they the best? They are. They just are. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Oh my gosh. What a great episode set. Yes. Ah! Freaking love it. I have lots of things yet to talk about, so we'll just have to get to that. And we still have 2 more episodes of the season. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? So good. So good. Oh, y'all. We have things to talk about. This is my favorite two-parter. It's at least one of them. Look. Picking our favorite Natsume Book of Friends episode is really hard. There's, at this point, 84 to choose from, plus the OVA. So it's really hard. I want to do like almost a ranking of like the episodes and everything of so far, but I feel like that's a video in itself, so I don't know. Originally I was going to start a new series in November, but it may be December if we need 2 weeks to like wrap up Natsume because it's been so much. But I almost feel like we need like not only the tier list for the creatures, but also for the yokai, but we also need like, this is like just to rank the episodes or rank the seasons. Like I feel like that needs to be a video in itself. So I've got work to do. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so this episode was great. This episode was wonderful. I loved it. This episode set is one of my favorites in the whole series. Just the callbacks in this, in episode 10, the callbacks and the connections and the tying everything together. I push Whiteboard Kun over a little bit. I feel bad Whiteboard Kun is half out of frame, which usually never happens, but I want to give myself this space to write, so that's kind of where we're at the moment. And there's my other marker. Yeah, I was like, where's my green? So, when you talk about this episode, what I loved about the little yokai, I say little, the one-eyed yokai, the one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater. What I loved about this yokai, and I don't know if you all noticed it as well, but in episode 9, the yokai, she had a very kind of like distorted, gnarly sound to her voice, and she sounded monstrous. By the end of the episode, she sounds more human. She sounds more like what Natsume and Natori and Matoba would consider normal. And that is because her anxiety, her distress, her anger kind of slowly melts away by the end of the episode when she realizes truly that the Miharu like clan leader is gone and that she can't repay her debt. And so that alone, the fact that I was noticing her voice becoming more and more like normal by human standards, I was like, oh, that's genius. Oh, it's genius. And then you get to this idea. So a lot of this series at this point are about promises. So we put up promises on here. So I know it's hard to read the orange, but I like the orange. It's festive, so humor me. So you have just the main one about Reiko. You have Reiko in the Book of Friends. That's brought up in this episode. And the idea of that promise now translating to Natsume. Although I do think it is worth noting Natsume is twisting the promise somewhat. He's giving the names back instead of collecting them. So it is a little bit of a reversal. But what is important to know is that Natsume is now sharing that burden with Natori and with Tanama and with Taki. Those are the three humans he's sharing this burden with, which the number 3 is not lost on me. You had the 3 yokai that were the pillars here. You have the 3 that are here. And then Madara's over there, but he's not a human. So then we have, I'm just going to put Matoba over here off to the side. Does Matoba know about the Book of Friends? No, not necessarily. Could Matoba know about the Book of Friends by next season? Oh, possibly. So, but yeah, Natsume is sharing with these 3 the promise of the Book of Friends, but it's mainly Natsume's burden, right? Whereas here we have in the Miharu house, we had Masahiro, I guess that was his name. We'll get it here in a second. And how he was the lead exorcist. And then there was this one yokai that was indebted to him. We're gonna talk about some connections to this. The one that the yokai that was indebted, and then the 3 that were made into familiars. 3 familiars seems like, I feel like with most of the exorcists we've talked about and seen in this show, they all have 3 main familiars. Matoba is kind of an exception to the rule because he has lots of familiars, and his main familiars are those that he deems to be, as long as they're worthy and usable, he's fine with it. But he doesn't have like the main three. Now, Natori's mentor, he had 3 familiars. We saw about that. It seemed that Beniko's grandpa had 2 main familiars, which were the 2 dragons. So that's a little different. But this exorcist had 3 familiars invited into the family. Natori has 3 familiars. Natsume just has the one, Madara, but that's because Madara is not willing to share. But I guess you could argue that Mizuzu is a familiar and Hinoue is. So I guess you could argue that there are 3 that are associated with him. So those 3 are associated. So I guess those are technically Natsume's 3 familiars. Madara just takes the brunt of the work because he doesn't want to share. So that's interesting. It makes me wonder if the familiar in Yorishiro's arm is maybe one of the familiars of Natsume's grandpa. I don't know. For a hot second, I thought that the leader of the Miharu clan was going to be Natsume's grandpa for a hot second, especially with the scarf and everything. But then as the episode went on, I was like, no, because he not only turned the woman away that he liked, but he seemed too old for the time period. The timelines did not add up for him to be Natsume's grandfather. The timeline didn't add up, and his connection with the clan did not, because Natsume's grandfather seems like a guy that was able to freely, even if he's an exorcist, move from place to place and do what he wants. Whereas this clan leader for the Miharu family, he couldn't leave. That was the point. He was stuck there, stuck with the clan, and that's why he kind of got to the point where he wanted them just to be gone, so he didn't have to worry about that, and so no one had to have the burden that he had, which we're going to talk about with Matoba. But anyway, so he's definitely not Natsume's grandfather. But we also didn't get any information about the Yorishiro household, and with that, the Yorishima household, and with that, we saw his face again. We saw his hand again when he was giving out the loquats to Natori and Matoba. We didn't see his face. I'm like, tease. Absolute tease. This mangaka is a tease, and it's annoying. So they welcomed in the spirit. I like that Nanase and Matoba got to get back. Can we talk about this scene where they're in the room trapped? Natori and Matoba. The tension, the sexual tension, the tension of just them in general. And so Natori's worried about Natsume and the others in the ceremony. Matoba makes the assumption, because it's not confirmed, but it's an assumption that Natori is affected by the spell and the barrier because he's weaker and isn't protecting himself. Now, is that true or not? Or is that just Matoba projecting and saying whatever he wants to? Here's the thing. We don't know. Matoba is smart and knows how to disperse the spell, but does he actually know where the spells come from or how they work necessarily? No. And so I think that that's one aspect about Matoba that if you watch his character, you have to be careful of, because he will frame it as if he knows everything. Matoba believes in his convictions, and he believes that he's right, and he knows he's smart, and he believes it, and he believes that that allows him to make and know the decisions and why they're made. We, the audience, have seen him be very wrong on multiple occasions, especially about yokai, because he doesn't care to know. It's like, oh, I know how these creatures are, but he doesn't pay any attention to the reasoning behind what they're doing. So, for example, with the yokai, the monsters, as he calls them, that are the pillars that come into the house, he's like, I don't know why they're here. Maybe they did this, or maybe they're falling, or maybe they're too stupid to realize that their family is gone. What we find out later on is that the yokai come back because they made a promise to protect the house. And they're honoring the promise as long as a representative from the family or likewise is going to welcome them back in and do the ceremony they established. Because yokai are kind of like people. They like routine. They don't like that routine getting messed up. And so they're like, if we're offering you protection of this house, it's your job to be respectful and do the ceremony that we've asked to do and that we've honored for longer than you've been alive, essentially. And Matoba is wrong to say that, oh, they're just so dumb they don't realize that the people are leaving the house. They've kept their promise because the Miharu clan member at the time that let them in saved them from starving, and they're repaying a debt. So again, this episode proves that while Matoba is smart and is correct on a lot of things, he's not correct about everything, but he thinks that he is. And that's a big flaw of his character. So he's like, oh yeah, he's like, this does seem bad. He's just like, it's kind of bad. He's like, well, we need to find a way to break the spell. When he pulls out the way to detect the spells and had the smoke, Natori's like, I'm slowly suffocating, but yes, bring that smoke out. And he's like, if we were truly trapped in here, Natsume might have simply disposed of the creature for us. Natori gets really upset about that. Because Matoba's like, well, if we are truly trapped, then I guess Natsume will just have to exercise the spirit to release us. And Natori hates that idea because he knows how much Natsume is affected by that, and he doesn't want to get him involved and make him do that because he knows how upset he would be. And Natori's like, no. And he's like, Matoba, he's like, and you should take more advantage of the tools that are available to you. Those who can should. That mentality is very scary, and I don't agree with it. Matoba, we're going to talk about Matoba over here. Matoba is very much telling Natori that he should use his resources, basically being like, you should use Natsume. Natsume's close with you. Why don't you use him? And Natori, is like, Natsume's a human, and like you said, makes his own choices, and we shouldn't be using people. And he also says, if you can, you should. I believe that Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park would argue with you a little bit, being like, people were more concerned about whether they could over whether they should. And I disagree with that. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should do that. No, you're not considering all of the factors involved with that. And he says those who cannot should simply stay away. But I think that Natsume has proven to Natori that there is value, even if you can't solve a problem, there is value in being there. And I think Natsume shows Matoba that at the end. And we'll talk about that when they have that scene on the bench. But anyway, we're going to get to Matoba. But he is the clan leader. And we're going to talk about this in a hot second. And so he starts to identify all of the spells in the room. He's like, how long will he pretend to be ordinary, I wonder? And Natori is like, Natori doesn't want to say anything about the Book of Friends. He's like, oh God. But the thing about it is, Matoba again is assuming a lot about Natsume that I don't think he quite knows that Natsume is very well aware of. Natsume knows his grandmother was special. Natsume knows that he's special because of his abilities. He knows he's not ordinary, but because he knows he's in an extraordinary position, Natsume knows he has this unique situation where he can choose whether or not to be with the Exorcist or not. Kind of like Reiko. And Natsume has chosen to not be involved with the Exorcist. And I think Matoba is just jealous of that freedom a little bit. I think Matoba kind of, doesn't want to accept that someone has that freedom accessible to them. Because Matoba is extremely powerful like Natsume, but Matoba doesn't have a choice. Matoba is bound by his family. And I think there's a little bit of dissension there, where Matoba, he is bound because of his power. Because of his power, he is bound to his duty as a clan member, which we'll talk about later. Natsume has this unique position where he has all of this power, but because he's literally an orphan, he does not have any respective clan that he has to be bound to duty for. He can go and do whatever he wants. And I kind of think Matoba's a little jealous of that. I think Matoba kind of envies Natsume's freedom as far as him being able to do what he wants. And he wants to try to get Natsume bound to the exorcism world to be like him. And Natsume is a little bit like Matoba. We'll talk about that. He's a little bit like him. But he is very different in terms of what he can do with his power. And Matoba is also different in that. Natori looks really good when he says that in this episode. He's animated so well. And that's when Natori says, have you never wanted to quit being an exorcist? And he looks at Matoba. Now, Natsume asked that exact same question last episode in episode 9. And Matoba didn't even have to think. He was like, oh, no, I've never questioned it. I've always wanted to be an exorcist. And I knew I could. And I think he could answer so quickly to Natsume because one, he's trying to manipulate Natsume to becoming an exorcist, and two, he knows Natsume doesn't know him, so there's an air of mystery there, and he knows he can get away with it. When Natori looks at him and Natori have history. Natori knows Matoba a little bit more than Natsume, and so when Natori looks at Matoba for an answer, Matoba doesn't give it. So I feel as if Matoba has considered not being an exorcist, but he does not see that freedom as an option. He does not believe that will be able to happen, which kind of relates to why he answered Natsume the way that he did. He doesn't feel like that's a possibility to answer. So then they find the where the source of the spell is in the room with the smoke. I also like the fact that Matoba uses a lot of smoke, again, like smoke and mirrors. And Natori uses paper because it's his clan of his exorcist family. They use paper spells. He's like, can you do the paper dropping spell? And he's like, yes, that should be sufficient to break it. And that strange spell seems to only affect you as well. He's like, can't you see the many curses written on the walls to harm intruders? Many of them, they are all simple and out of date. But it seems they affect those who leave themselves vulnerable. If that is not one of the biggest, like, symbolic moments, because Natori does leave himself vulnerable. Natori kind of embraces his vulnerability. And I feel like he embraces it more and more because Natsume has kind of shown him that that's a possibility and that it is a way for him to express himself. And Natori is just an empathetic person. Matoba is not empathetic. Matoba is not empathetic. So it is very easy for Matoba to hide any vulnerability. He rarely shows it. So, of course, if you have a stone heart, you're not going to be affected as much. Right? He's like, well, Natori, if you can't do it, shall I handle it all for you? God, that just, you might as well have just called that foreplay because, like, seriously, Natori's like, fine. And then we hear, I have no interest in the weak. Never let me see you again. And then we're back. So while they're figuring out how to disperse the spell, Natsume talks with the little spirit, and he hugs the spirit quite a lot in this episode. And Madara's like, Madara's not too worried about the one-eyed spirit because he knows that it's not very strong, so it's not going to hurt Natsume. Natsume just absorbing its anger makes him weaker. And so then Natori does his spell with the paper. Matoba is impressed. Again, Matoba also in using people. That's another thing that to me would limit Matoba and Natori into being a ship right now based on how Matoba is as a character, is Matoba is too eager and too easily willing to use people for his own agenda. Like, he's able to break the spell, but it's only through using Natori. So I'm like, I don't know if you could be in a relationship with someone that just uses people and doesn't see them as anything but valuable for an agenda. I think that that's something that's, I feel that the clan leader for the Miharu, I feel like he realized all too late that he wanted to love someone but couldn't. He boxed himself into a corner where he could not feel safe loving someone else and putting them in danger. And I feel like Matoba's not to that point yet, but he's getting there if he doesn't like stop using people and making it to where they're never going to take him as anything but a sarcastic boss that can't be trusted beyond just work business. So they go to hurry, and then yes, the one-eyed yokai describes the leader of the Miharu as the cruel, merciless exorcist. I lived quietly in a small shack in the yard of a big mansion on the other side of the mountain. A large yokai came to live in the mansion's storehouse. Yokai that bring disaster with them gathered as well. So it makes sense that people in the mansion cried all the time. So this little yokai hung out in this mansion's little shack, just doing little simple yokai things. And this really harmful yokai came along with these evil spirits. And this guy from the Miharu mansion, from the Miharu family, this exorcist was sent to dispel them. Which, the one-eyed yokai kind of frames it in a way where the one-eyed yokai kind of knew that these were, yokai that were very dangerous. but they weren't bothered by them because they're yokai, but they recognized the people in the mansion were very upset. But then when he comes to when the cruel and merciless exorcist comes to take care of them, the yokai's like, well, he murdered all of them. And I'm like, yeah, but you just said they were really dangerous. So unlike Natsume, who would try to talk them through, he's like, I cried too. I was so scared. Whenever the one-eyed yokai has the big eye with the tears in it, I'm sorry, adorable. I could not. She was so cute there. I was so scared. The people in the mansion called many exorcists. And then one day, the cruel and merciless Miharu exorcist, Masakio. But here's the thing. Masakio, not Masahio. Here's the thing. The cruel and merciless exorcist is not necessarily the yokai calling him that because she believes he's cruel and merciless. That's just his title. And as we've learned over 7 seasons in this series, the yokai treat their titles very seriously. If you're called the beautiful swan, blah, 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 then everyone will call you the beautiful swan, blah, blah, blah. And Madara gets so frustrated because no one gets his title right. He's like, I am noble and sensei and all this. So the cruel and merciless Miharu exorcist is just what they called him as a title. So the yokai was like, well, that must be his name. All of it, not just Miharu or Masakio. I was too scared to move. The powerful yokai weren't afraid at all. But when Miharu came, he destroyed them with ease. He also had a paper in his arms, in his hands. So, is it possible that he had arts, and I'm going to write over here, arts similar to the Natori clan? We did establish Natori's family. They stopped being spiritually aware, so they kind of like got out of the exorcist world, but is there a chance that they were related to the Miharus and were somehow, because the Miharus are a clan that joined the Matoba clan, but they're not blood related. They just joined the family like a mob, so, or a mafia or a yakuza. So they're associated, but they're not blood related. So it could be that the Natoris, because they're known for their paper curses and their paper spells, might have been related to the Miharus distantly, maybe, possibly. We don't know. And Natsume's like, that way you hate him. And she's like, no. We find out. Okay, so I love when Matoba comes back and Nanase's like, where have you been? And he's like, I'll tell you later. Like, I just love that. And then meanwhile, Tori's like, Natsume! Tori has no care about this ceremony at all. He's just going to look for him. And he's like, I have no interest in the weak. And he let her go. But then she was like, he saved my life. So I felt like I owed him. But he, very similarly to Natori, was like, I want nothing to do with you. Because, and honestly, he was doing the smart thing because he was like, this yokai is pretty clingy. Like Madara says, like, oh, that's called stalking. Like what you're doing. So the female yokai, she was kind of, stalking him and being clingy. And he was just like, no, stay back. But he also was like, I have a job to exercise strong yokai. And I just don't want to do that to you because you don't deserve that. So again, that duty to destroy strong yokai is probably from the Matoba clan. They probably told him that he had to do that, and he's part of the clan, so he didn't have much choice. And she's like, I continued following him, hoping to repay his debt. But, when he was crying, we get the full scenario at the end where she talks about he fell in love, but he couldn't burden her with his past, or that he was an exorcist, and he made her go away, so she didn't have to be part of that. It's kind of like if you love him, let him go. Seems like what he did with her. And then he was mad and wished the whole exorcist household didn't exist so he could live a normal life. Now here's the thing. With Matoba, I don't think that Matoba wishes to not be an exorcist so he could find love. I mean, he's got Natori right there. But I do feel that similar to Masakio, I feel that Matoba, there's a part of him that wishes he didn't have to do the exorcisms so that he could have the freedom like Natori and Natsume do, where they're not bound to this duty of destroying yokai. Right? We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So yeah, she's like, even if I tried to destroy the clan, she's like, if I anger the pillars, it would destroy the Miharu. And Natsume's like, this is a bad idea. She's like, I won't let you interfere with my interfering. And I love Hiragi showing up and helping them find a way out. We've got to stop it before it gets too far. I also love just everything about, again, the world building and the fact that they have the ceremony. they lead the spirit to the pillar room, and then they find out which spirit it is and how long they're going to be there. Luckily, it's the one that's going to be there for 30 years. And Matoba's like, I'm not going to have to deal with that after that because I'll be like 70 something. Now, when they said find another clan leader by then, I'm assuming that Matoba has never expressed any considerations of having children. So maybe he's assuming somebody else in the clan is going to have a kid. And I'm curious about that because if Matoba wanted his clan to be great and keep going, you'd think he would marry and have a kid to take over. But maybe part of that is that he knows how awful it is to be the clan leader and who would want to put themselves through that. So, but he also said the Matoba clan is filled with very incompetent people. So I don't know what his future plans are. I don't know if he even knows himself. That seems, he's just like, well, we don't have to worry about it for 30 years, so we're fine. But yeah, thank God Natori came in. And honestly, in that moment, when we have Madara's cat butt as the intermission, Natsume moves to stop it. And then I love Matoba looked back for a second, like, bitch, are you going to mess this whole thing up? But then turned around right as Natori showed up. Like, Natori, you do not realize it, but you were in Matoba's hand quite a lot. You were in the palm of his hand quite a lot. Even if you don't want to be used by him, you kind of are at his mercy quite a bit. And he's like, get any closer to the procession, I'll exercise you one eye. He's like, oh, Tori, I love that she gets mad and she's like, with her one eye, like you can just see it, and then she runs away. So they go camp out while the ceremony is going on. And I really like it. Natori looks just bigger in this episode set. He just looks bigger. I also love Hiragi holding Madara. That's adorable. That's precious. He's got one eye open. But yeah, they're there. They're like, Masakio and the Miharu are gone. And she's like, no, the household's right here, which would make sense because it's the Matoba clan. They are there performing the ceremony. She's like, they're still here, right? He wanted this all gone. He was crying, that strong Masakio. He was bent over sobbing because he had to usher the love of his life away. That's the sad part. And Natsume hugging the yokai and explaining to her that they're gone from this place. Because if you think about it, usually a lot of the yokai are motivated by anger and sorrow and despair. Who has felt all of those emotions, especially about, the lack of a loved one or place of belonging? Natsume. So Natsume understands what these yokai are going through, and so he's able to empathize and hug them and let them get all that emotion out of them. And again, Madara was not worried about Natsume because he lets Hiragi hold him in that moment. And just the hug that they share. So yeah, the one shows up, which looks like a cross between Geto and a priest from Jujutsu Kaisen and Scarecrow from Batman Begins and something from Return to Oz. It's so creepy. He's like, Bobuzukin, take this sake. You are the pillar and our protector. And that's when he says to repay you for inviting us in when we were starving. Again, they don't know that Matoba is not a Miharu clan member. They don't know. They don't care. They're just like, your family invited us in when we were starving and we want to repay you. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. One, did the Miharu clan invite them in out of the kindness of their heart and they are repaying them out of the kindness of their heart? Or did the Miharu clan use them and make it seem like they were paying them back for starving when they really just wanted to use them for their protection? We don't know. That's up to us to decide as the audience. We don't know. It could be either way and I wouldn't be surprised. But he says, neither storm nor fire, nor water nor mountain shall destroy this house. And then the other yokai notices that the ceremony's over. And whenever Natsume collapses, that's when Madara has the eyes, like the yokai eyes. Idiot. What happens when you cling to an angry yokai? So then Natsume remembers what the yokai shared with him. And he's like, live as you like. And what's sad is that the yokai started to develop this crush on him with the cherry blossoms and making the flowers as he was falling in love with someone else, but then he sent them away. There's something kind of tragically beautiful, though, about the fact that the yokai, who technically, as far as we know, who knows how this world building is going to go, but the yokai technically can't be with him, but the yokai stuck around even after he sent the human away. There's something kind of haunting about that and really sad. So, which this series has kind of used that plot point to show how tragic it can be. But we had him sitting on the bench lamenting the fact that he was bound to this duty and he couldn't have the life that he wanted. Oh my gosh, my dogs. He couldn't have the life that he wanted to have because of that. And she's like, you saw what was in my heart. But if the Miharu disappear, if they disappeared, Masakio, well, it's too late. And it's so sad. And that's too late for everything. And too late for him. And Natsume's like, well, was there something else? And that's when, live as you like. Well, yeah, in that moment, he says, there was something else he said. And you're like, you're free, go where you like. And Matoba hears that part. And Madara's eyes, live as you like. I think that's the ultimate freedom that Matoba would like to have, but he just isn't allowed to have that. I'm super glad that Matoba did not exercise that little one-eyed yokai. I was afraid that Matoba was going to just show up and exercise her, but I'm glad that didn't happen. I think Matoba from season 4 would have done that, but not Matoba now. So Matoba thanks Natori for his help. He's like, you saved us. He's like, I don't know if I could have gotten out of that room without you. So this time we're even. This house won't trouble us for some time. And then he talks about to inherit something and bear its burdens. Well, Natori says that the true weight of such a thing is greater than I can know. Yeah, because Natori, his family didn't leave him anything to inherit. He started out in the Exorcist world all over again. And the whole idea of the promise and the ceremony and everything is exactly like the Book of Friends. That's exactly what it is. And Tori's like, he's like, the idea, but for now, this is what I think. A heavy burden can be shared. And I think that Matoba's kind of surprised by that because Matoba has been shouldering his entire clan by himself. And, Masakio thought that he'd have to shoulder it all by himself. There was no way he could share that with someone else or that the burden could be shared and someone would understand it. So, Matoba, maybe you and Natori. Natori sounds like he could share your burden. I'm just saying, he's helping Natsume, so maybe he could help you too. Natori's our emotional support friend. So they look for the one eye, and Madara's like, yeah, they probably left. Who knows where they went. And he's like, come on, Natsume, before someone takes all the sweet loquats, let's go get it. And then he sees Madara, or he sees Matoba no, we're not right now. He sees Matoba in the exact same place that Masakio was. So he goes to sit by him. If you had told me 2 seasons ago we were going to have a season ending like this one here, I would have been like, no way. Now, even if you told me back in episode 6, because Natsume and Matoba were starting to kind of warm up to each other, and at least, it fits very much for Natsume that he's someone that wants to get to know his enemies. He's done that with the yokai quite a bit. So it only makes sense that he would want to get to know Matoba. Because if he gets to know him, he can be like, I'm going to worm myself into your heart like I have everybody else. And he's like, oh, thank you for your help. It all turned out okay, just as you said. And so I like that Matoba scoots over and leaves that spot for Natsume. Because Matoba in the past wouldn't have done that. He would have done that without some ulterior motive. But here he's genuinely just offering him a spot to sit next to him. He's like, I feel pity for the 3 pillars. Even with the family gone, they have to come and keep their promise. Is he suggesting that he has pity for Natsume? Because Natsume is essentially kind of like the 3 pillars. He has to keep Reiko's promise with the Book of Friends, even if it is a little bit different than what was intended. That's kind of like the pillars now. And Matoba saying he has pity. I'm like, Is he also translating this to Natsume as well? He says it's funny but also troublesome. Well, that is probably how he would feel about the Book of Friends with Natsume as well. And Natsume, you know, thinks about how he talked about how troublesome things were for Natori, and probably thinks back to this, and he's like, just for a moment, I wondered if he was jealous of the lengths they went through to keep their promise. He could have. I hadn't thought of it that way, but he could have. Because, you know, for the sake of his family, Matoba can't make promises. He can, they have to be promises towards the family. So maybe, you know, he's like, is something wrong? And Natsume's like, no, just introspection. He's like, I don't know how things will work out next time, but we'll see whether it's Shiro or Akane. There'll be a new head of the family then, so it won't impact me. So it's not my problem to worry about. I'm like, but it is your problem to worry about, and you're probably going to worry about it because that seems to be you. And then Natsume is so nice and gives him the loquat and says, I'm sure it'll be fine if you truly desire to welcome them as you did today. Natsume is like, if you will be kind and empathetic and do what you think is right, and what is right, then you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about it. And he's like, so cheer up, please. And Matoba's like, you told me to cheer up? Like for Natsume to tell him to cheer up? Natsume, our Natsume from season 1, would you ever imagine him to tell anybody to cheer up? But here he does. He does right here. And Matoba's kind of so surprised. He's like, well, how strange. Do I look like I need cheering up? But he does. Matoba does seem very burdened by all of his responsibilities, which again is not too different from Natsume. The funny thing is that Natsume has a lot of responsibility as well. And I feel like there are parts of Natsume and Matoba that are similar. They both care about their families. Natsume cares about the Fujiwaras and his friends. Matoba does care about his clan, and I'm sure he cares about Nanase, who's part of the clan. So, but they both care about their family. They both have a responsibility that's tied to their family. Natsume to his grandmother and Matoba to his clan. The difference is that Natsume, because his family does not exist anymore except for his foster family, he has so much more freedom to go about and do what he wants. Matoba, because there's so much tradition and family still around, it dictates what he's able to do. But both of them would argue in this episode. They're like, do I really look like I need cheering up? I know I'm bound and have all this responsibility, but am I happy within it? Like when Matoba was like, yes, I couldn't imagine seeing myself as anything but an exorcist, even though he hesitates with Natori. He's kind of like, I chose this path. I know what I have to do. And if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it. And I feel like Natsume, oddly enough, is similar to Matoba. He's like, I appreciate the kindness, so I'll take it. Isn't the loquat from the Yorishima household? When I was a student, I would always stare at them. But he couldn't have them, right? And so it shows them over there once when Natori and I were looking at them. That's when Yorishima-san gave us each one. So even back then, you can see he had the yokai arm when they were kids. Even back then. But the thing that he says here, he's like, mine was sweet and delicious. My long-held desire had been fulfilled. But Natori got a bad one. He's just like, and he had a strange look on his face as he ate it. I think perhaps that he wanted to give it to Natori and I was simply there. But I got the sweet one. And Natori showed Yorishima-san a face like he wasn't enjoying it. Even though something so small turns into a mess. So Matoba laments, and clearly for Matoba to remember something that simple that happened when they were kids, I think it is part of like a traumatic burden for him. Because he basically was like, he thought that Yorishima meant to give the sweet loquat to Natori. And he didn't want to give Matoba one, but because Matoba was there, he was obligated. And then by sheer luck, surprising no one, Matoba got the sweet one and Natori got the sour one. But that's such a sad way to look at that scenario, because what that suggests is that Matoba believes that people only do things for him because they feel obligated to. They don't do it because they genuinely want to. So, which checks out, because all of the exorcists view the Matoba clan very negatively. Like, we don't like the Matoba clan, but they have all the power and the money and the resources, so we kind of have to do whatever they say. And Matoba's like, I'm just fulfilling my family's duty and doing it well because I believe in Asian excellence, and so I'm going to do that. But what I find fascinating is that Matoba, he kind of has this mindset that people are only kind to him and around him because it's obligation and duty. And if they had the choice, they wouldn't want to be around him. Which is why he kind of teases Natori, but at the end of the day, he kind of wants Natori to be around because he feels like Natori could be a friend and he doesn't want to drive him off, right? And then Natsume, I think Natsume fascinates Matoba so much because Natsume is genuinely kind to him because he doesn't know all this past or doesn't put stock in it or care as much as other people do. And so Matoba's like, you're like the one person that's nice to me. Which hopefully will affect him in the future and influence him. But yeah, something so small could turn into a mess. And that's like the Book of Friends in a nutshell. He's like, there's no point to that story at all. And it's like, there was. You clearly are affected by this story. It's bothering you. So, and Natsume's not dumb. He notices that too. I love Hiragi and the familiars working with Madara to get the loquats out of the tree. That's so precious and adorable. I freaking love it. Yes. He's like, they should have been safe with those powerful gods protecting them. Perhaps inviting the three pillars is what caused their decline. He's like, there are things that people can't control. I don't know. I mean, I think that we can't assume what led to their decline because there's so many factors. The fact that there were other clans involved, there's all of this. I mean, you just don't know. But I'm like, you can't tell me. He's like, I don't mean the yokai. It could have been people as well. Yeah. It could have been the Matoba clan that caused their downfall. Could have been the other clans. Could have been other exorcists. I mean, we just don't know. There's too many factors. I want to know what he got out of Yorishima's house, though. I want to know that. And why was Yorishima there at one point, but then left? Midori Cow is playing the long game, and it's enough to drive you crazy. But yeah, he's like Sensei in the Book of Friends. He's like, what does he say there? He says, I mean ourselves. And we're talking about exorcists. So I think people like you who can have such strong powers like Sensei and the Book of Friends and not use them are rare. And he's like, don't be stupid. I'm horribly overworked. Yeah, but we know what he means. And Natsume's like, well, perhaps at first it was just someone who wanted to protect their home. And three yokai helped them. But over time, there were these ripples. Even something so small still turns into a mess. And then Natori's like, Natsume, I'm sorry for getting involved in my exorcist problems. I'll give these to you, so cheer up. And Natsume's like, do I look like someone who needs cheering up? The same thing Matoba said. I love this idea that Matoba and Natsume are two sides of a coin. The more we get with them, at first I thought it was Natori and Matoba that were two sides of the same coin, but no, they are very different coins. They are good foils for each other, but they are very different coins. Natsume and Matoba are two sides of a coin. But their backgrounds and histories and everything are so different, but yet intertwined. And Natsume's like, do I look like I'm sad? Oh, so good. Oh man, this episode set, one of my favorites. One of my favorites of the entire series. Easily, hands down. Ranking this series is gonna be hard, but that one just mwah, 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 mwah. So I've talked for so long about these two episodes. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm so intrigued to know what you all took from this episode. Obviously, we can't have manga spoilers for later on. We can't have spoilers for the last two episodes coming up. But if you have comments down below talking about your impressions of this episode, about Matoba, Natori, Natsume, I would love to hear them. and we can talk about hopefully in the intro of a future set of videos. So with that being said, I hope you all have an incredible week. Please stay safe. Take care. And we have the penultimate, not the series season finale, but the penultimate episode next week. And I'm so excited to talk about it with you all. We'll have to tune in and see it, but I'll see you all then with more reactions to Natsume's Book of Friends. Bye.